Welcome to Andy's Garage. I'm Andy Phillips. Today I'm going to show you how to replace the exhaust manifold gasket on a Kia Rio. Now this is the 1.6 liter four-cylinder engine. So if you have any of the other vehicles that utilize this same engine, I believe it's made by Hyundai, process would be the same. Let's go ahead and get started. Here's the items that you'll need to complete this. Obviously you'll need your replacement gasket. You can pick these up anywhere. They're easy to come by. Next, you will need an O2 socket. This is a 7/8. If you don't have one of those, you can also use a 7/8 wrench, but I do recommend this particular kind of O2 socket. It makes it easier. Obviously, a ratchet. You will need a 14 millimeter, a 13 millimeter, and a 10 millimeter socket, and this is what you'll need in order to remove the exhaust manifold away from the engine block so you can replace the gasket. For starters, we need to remove this engine cover, which just has four little tabs. Just give it a good pull, pop it off, and we can get that out of the way so we can see everything. Coming in here, you'll see this line right there. That's our Upstream O2 sensor. Your O2 sensors, let's bring the camera back here, they connect right here. So you have the black one is your upstream, the gray one underneath is your downstream, which is below the catalytic converter. But if we follow this along, we'll see right there is our get a better shot here. There's our O2 sensor. So we'll have to remove that. It's very easy to take that off. Then you have this heat shield right here. This heat shield on top of all that. And if you see there, we have a connection there. It's a connection there, and I believe there's one further down right there. And we'll pop those off, and once we get into it, we'll go over the sizes of sockets and bolts and stuff that we're dealing with. But that's what gets removed, and then we have our catalytic converter is under there. If we look right here, you can kind of see it. It's kind of covered by the heat shield, but you can see right there where it connects to the exhaust manifold, and you have your exhaust manifold gasket in there. You have those connection points there with all those nuts and studs, and going along that way. And once we get the heat shield off, you'll be able to see it better. But let's head underneath and I'll show you the other part where it's connected. Taking a look underneath, there's our muffler. Coming along here is our pipe. And you want to work your way all the way. Let me move the camera in here. All the way up into there. That's where our catalytic converter connects. There's our downstream O2 sensor. We don't need to remove that, but sometimes getting it out of the way can help. Moving away from the exhaust flange towards the exhaust manifold, you'll see there's a mount right here with a 14 millimeter nut that's holding the catalytic converter in place. We're going to have to remove that so we can move it. We're going to start by removing the Upstream O2 sensor, but one thing that you want to keep in mind is if you just drove your vehicle, you might want to wait a little bit because that whole exhaust piece there is extremely hot. You don't want to be getting burned. So we let the car cool down a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to get a close-up, is I'm going to remove the O2 sensor so that way we can remove that heat shield and then start hitting the all of those nuts and studs that are along the exhaust manifold, and then we'll end off down at the bottom where it connects to the exhaust pipe. I'm going to use this adapter here. They make other ones as well for removing O2 sensors, but worst case scenario, if you don't have the right socket, you can always use a 7/8 wrench, get a good grip on it, and get it off that way. But I found these work the best. So let's put this on here, and then we'll unplug the harness, and then we'll be able to pop that out. Here's the plug for the Upstream. So this side here slides out. There's a little tab underneath that will push in, and then we'll be able to slide it out like that. Disconnect that, but we are going to slide this off of this so we can fully get this O2 sensor out of the way. There we go. Put this over here. There we go. Okay, we should be able to take it off by hand. Let's see here. Okay. All right. All right, here's our O2 sensor, the Upstream. We'll put that off to the side. Sometimes these can be pretty tight. This one here was pretty easy. I was able to just get it off by hand, but sometimes you may want to use a breaker bar, things like that if it's too tight. If you want to see some videos I've done on pertaining to O2 sensors as far as how to clean them, just kind of understanding them more and, upstream, downstream, all that stuff, I'll have links across the bottom in the description where you can check those out. But now let's remove the heat shield. These are 10 millimeter bolts holding that on. You have one here, one there, and then one all the way down there. Okay. All right. See here, it's already getting loose. Now to get to this one, it looks further away in this video than it really is, but we can just take this, just go right down here on it. There we go. Before you try to pull it out, you have your downstream O2 sensor that's connected here. And this little tab, there's one further down. Let's see if I can go down there and get it. There we go. Slide that off. And now if we pull back here, we can grab this and pull this out. Heat shield is off. Now we have a better look. Let me show you now the catalytic converter and all the attachment points. But if we come down here, let's see if we can see it. These are 13 millimeter nuts. You have 9 of them. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, one in the middle there. So that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So those 9 are holding this to the exhaust manifold. Your gasket is underneath, and that's your catalytic converter. That's where our upstream O2 sensor was going in. Our downstream is all the way down there. So let's start taking this off. These can be on there pretty tight. However, these are coming off a little bit easier. So let's see. Want to be careful you don't lose the washer either. And here you can see it better. You saw how we removed that one, so now we're going to do the other 8. I'm not going to film the whole thing, so we already showed you where they're located. You can also access these from underneath if you want to. I just reach down from the top. For me, it's easier instead of having to climb underneath, but it's up to you. But as you can see, you can access these very well. See the other side. Now, when you come over here, you got a little more obstruction to get up in there in order to reach those. So it's up to you how you want to do it. I removed 7 already. Here's the last 2. This one right back here in that corner, and then that one tucked right there, and then that'll take care of this connection here to the exhaust manifold. The last nut all the way down here on the bottom, and I'll show you. So we removed everything, and we've got that last one all the way back there. So we got that one there on the far corner, right here. That one's done. It's the one right here next to it. Because of all the twisting and all the pipes, I used a long socket with a small extension just to get some clearance through that. That's what I found was the best way, because even from underneath, that's a hard one to get to. So with that now in place, we can remove it. All right, that was the last nut coming off of there. It is a little tricky. You got to navigate around those pipes, but with, as we saw, different lengths of extensions and deeper sockets, you'll need some shorter sockets, as we saw earlier on with some other things. You'll get that off. So let's head underneath now. Just remove that last one to that mount for the catalytic converter, and then this should come right out. See here, we can pull it this way, remove it from those studs, and then we're also going to be pulling it this way so we can get it completely out. So if you remove it like this, you can see there's your exhaust manifold gasket, and then you can slide that out. You can put the new one in. Here's a shot from the bottom. You can see there going up. There's the gasket to the exhaust manifold. You can see where we're pulling the exhaust manifold off right there. Get a good shot of it there. You'll see the exhaust manifold and catalytic converter are all gone in this shot because I was doing other work to this vehicle. You don't need to remove all that. I'm going to take the new gasket. We're going to slide it into position here. Line it up with the studs. There we go. Bring it down here. And it just drops right on. See, it's there. And working our way down this way. Same thing, just slide it on. And that's it. You can see the gasket in place. We have this mounted on the studs, going all the way down. Here you can see it. So I'm going to hand tighten now the nuts on there, just to hold it in place, and then we'll head down to the lower end, and then we'll make that attachment down there. Okay. All right, as you can see, all of these have been attached and hand tightened. Then we'll be back to torque everything properly, and then reinstall the heat shield and the O2 sensor and wrap this up. Now that everything has been hand tightened, we're ready to go back around and torque everything properly. But what I wanted to show you is there's a certain sequence that you want to torque where the exhaust manifold gets tightened up. So we have this hole here in the middle. You want to start off with that one. Then this is your second one, your third one, your fourth one, fifth one, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And here's a diagram. So now that that's in place, we're going to go around and we're going to torque all those. Now you want to torque them to 30 foot-pounds of torque. So that's what we're going to torque all of those nuts, and then we'll come back to go underneath and we'll talk about that one at that point. So let's start torquing this and tightening all up. Based on the sequence that we just reviewed, we're starting off right here with this one here in the middle. And then there's the rest of it from there. So we'll take our torque wrench. Now to properly torque some of those lower nuts on the exhaust manifold, you're going to need to get to it from the bottom. Now to do so, we have this this support here for the catalytic converter. We have these other two nuts that are also 14 millimeters. We're going to take those off so we can remove this whole plate. That'll give us access to be able to get up in there with our torque wrench and torque those down properly. To get to it from the top, you can try it, but it's a little tricky weaving through those pipes like that. Everything's been put back, all three of those bolts, now that everything has been torqued properly. Now that everything has been put back, everything is torqued properly down at the exhaust flange, up here at the exhaust manifold, gaskets have been put back in. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to reinstall the heat shield. I'm not going to show you how to do that. Same way that we took it off at the beginning, we're going to put the three 10mm bolts back on, and then we'll end off by putting the upstream O2 sensor, and then you want to make sure that you feed the downstream and the upstream O2 sensor cables through here. That way they're not resting on the hot exhaust. You want them on these spacers. So I'm going to put this in and then we'll be back. Everything is good. We'll put the engine cover back on. One little tabs as it goes on. There we go. Everything is good. That wraps up this video on how to replace the exhaust manifold gasket on a Kia Rio. Now this is the Hyundai 1.6 liter 4-cylinder engine. So any of the other vehicles that utilize that engine would be the same thing. I hope that this video was informative for you. I hope it helps you out with any projects that you're working on. Please send me any questions and comments. I would love to hear from you. As always, I appreciate all the support. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.